How many times have you said to yourself, I'm going to succeed, and yet you keep coming up short? You probably noticed that high achievers with heart do things differently, but you just can't put your finger on it. You're curious about why high achievers accomplish more and have more satisfying relationships. It's because success is the result of your mindset and the consistent actions you take. This show is designed with your success in mind. By revealing these powerful patterns of our dynamic individuals and guest experts, you can model what they do and apply to your future success now. Let's roll up our sleeves and get started. My name is Brigitta Hoeferle, and this is the Success Patterns Show. And that is right. Happy Tuesday. Thank you for being here on the Success Pattern Show. My name is Brigitta Hoeferle. We are bringing you golden nuggets. Success patterns are more valuable than ideas. Let me explain. Ideas, while powerful, require trial and error, a lot of time to put into action. Just think about manufacturing. First, you have an idea, then proof of concept, then a working prototype, then small production batches, and finally, full-scale production. This takes months, maybe even years. And you may have met some people that are collectors of ideas and do little else. Forget everything you've heard about ideas. You're not looking for ideas. You are looking for success patterns. That's why you're at the right place at the right time. Success patterns are different. Success patterns are better. Why? Well, success patterns are proven, have a logical sequence of steps to follow, have an action imperative, and deliver consistent results. In today's content-rich program, you're going to learn valuable, important success patterns from our very special guest expert, a crossover artist and celebrity chef. And I cannot wait for you to meet her. She is consistently seeking the inner voice to connect and develop talents about herself and about others. It's all about self-love, which is difficult to achieve, and yet it's an essential element to all successful relationships. She is a celebrity chef. She's a culinary artist. She's an artist all in itself. She's a female entrepreneur. She's a best-selling cookbook author, an accomplished guide for healing through food. And I am so honored to have her on the show. Katie O'Reilly, thank you for being here, Katie.
Wow, what an introduction. So happy to be here. Thank you.
Katie, an artist, a celebrity chef, cooking all in itself is an art form. But it's not just an art form, as I just, read in your bio. Cooking food can be a healing component. How do you marry art and healing into one through food?
Well, without sounding too esoteric, let's kind of break it down. So what it really comes down to is understanding my inner voice and my passion. And it goes back to just really what inspires me from that inner essence of who I am, even like pre-memory, like what really speaks to me. And the things that have spoken to me, I almost have a different language that I speak with food. It's interesting. It speaks to me on a level that makes me want to make it its best. It's a tool for me to show and express my love and my talents. And it makes me feel good, not only about myself and something I've accomplished, but also I am able to offer that to the world. So it also delivers a message of this love that is sometimes difficult to communicate. And it's within following that passion and that inner love that I try to use as my motivation for all living, really.
Love it. You said something. I see a book coming in the near future, The Language of Food. What language do different foods speak?
Well, okay, it's going to sound silly, but I work anybody can take the highest end ingredients and turn them into something delicious. You can follow a recipe, You can do a lot of things and people can create something delicious. It's not like that for me. What it is for me is I want to take anything that's presented to me and make that shine and become its most beautiful self. This is most easily done with vegetables and things from nature. I try not to overcomplicate things. I try to utilize their own beauty and then highlight them from there. Now, if you're finding a pattern or something about this, I also do the same. I have the same relationship with my own self. I work hard to nurture my own self-love in the same way and bring out my own beautiful qualities, which is something that there's the language that I speak. It's what I say to myself and how I express that to the world.
So what I heard you just say is you don't need to have all of these fancy foods and fancy ingredients and even fancy explanation, because that's often what, culinary anything is often portrayed as. But it's what I'm hearing you say is it's coming down to the essentials. And one thing.
Well, okay, so just to give a little bit more background from where I'm coming from with this, I have achieved great success in my culinary career. I catered the 50th birthday party of President Barack Obama. I have 87 episodes of a fully edited television show that I created and masterfully designed myself. I have clients that, the list continues. I've achieved my success. I've also gone on television, national television, and competed. So what's important for me is to follow what's next for me and to be genuine with my own inner voice. It happens to be with food and things like art because that's who I am and that's how I express it to the outside world. But what's really important to me is staying genuine within the core of where all of this comes from. And that's where the real challenges come in. And that's my daily challenge with myself and where I am growing constantly.
Thank you for that clarification. Did you go to school? Did you go to culinary school?
I did not go to culinary school. So everything I know has been speaking to me since birth. And because I have such a strong relationship with food and always felt I've been cooking since I remember. And it's not necessarily because I needed to please people. It's because I love good food and I love the challenge of taking an ingredient or a situation and making it its best. So it's a way for my hands to actually produce something that I envision inside myself. So it comes out. And it's something that I release a lot of anxieties through. I challenge myself. I can prove things to myself. I can get lost in it. I can be silent in it. I don't even care if anybody else is around me. It's my own private space that I am free to create. And then if people enjoy it, great.
So there's that creative part again, right? You've come through the Art Institute. You're a very creative soul. You're a very creative being, or you're a creative bee as you are in the moment. And cooking is part of you. That is part of who Katie is. Now, before we started the show today, you and I talked a little bit, and I asked you, does the TV celebrity and culinary part of Katie, is that the definition of Katie? And you're like, no. Yes.
Yes. It's like an arm, So I will kind of step back a little bit in my history without going too deep within. I have studied and pursued my education mostly in world religions and spiritual development. And I have a philosophy degree as well. So I have spirituality, mysticism, and philosophy as my base core of my passion. It happens to be expressed through food. And like I said, I had a 20-year career, very extremely successful career, even before I went into food at the Art Institute doing special events, where I was in charge of protocol, and I learned a lot about people and ethnicities and entertaining. And I became the world-class entertainer and planner. So then when I went into food, I had that element. So all of those outside successes, I've been able to hit my benchmarks with them. But what's most important to me is where I am right now and what's speaking to me now, because one thing I've learned about myself is I always have to practice moving forward and bettering myself. And sometimes what the world tells me that means is not necessarily what my inner voice says, because those can be two different things to us. And what we really need to focus on is listening to what makes sense to us. Because when you're seeing and hearing all this success, what you're also not seeing is the doors that didn't open for me. And what did I do with those opportunities of maybe not hitting my goal that I thought I needed to make, or maybe not getting that TV commercial or opportunity that I thought was promised, or maybe when I thought that I was doing my television show that I would have more response and I didn't. So what I've learned is that it has to be done in order for me to be fulfilled by something. My motivation has to be genuinely within myself. Because if I'm looking to the outside world for that confirmation, what I've learned really fast and furious is it's never going to be there. It cannot be about that for me. So where I stand right now is that I have learned to slow down and embrace my inner soul and spirit and be okay with that. The good, the bad, the ugly. Try not to judge it, be okay with it, and follow that. However, what I love is how far I've gone within this self-love and this understanding, and I'm ready to bring that, and I'm learning to bring that to others.
And thank you, because that is true care for humanity. And it's easy when you're in the spotlight, it's easy to get lost in yourself. It's easy to get lost on the validation that we're looking for from the outside, right? And now than ever before with social media, there's so many people out there that are looking for validation from other people, and they get crushed for not getting the likes, for not getting the visibility, for not getting the thumbs up, for not the, you go get it, girl. And they lose their own identity. You constantly staying on your toes. It's a success pattern that I also learned from Karl Lagerfeld, which I'm a big fan of Karl Lagerfeld. And he came from that mindset of not ever staying complacent. That's why he completely destroyed all of his drawings. Any design that he ever made, he drew it, it was implemented, and then it was destroyed. To not stay in that, I can actually go back to that design because that was actually really good, and we can kind of repurpose that. So not staying complacent. Now I see that pattern very much in you, Katie. And there's an added on pattern while you're doing that. I call it the concept of while you're doing that, you're also able to do scale, grow, be in a different way, do something a different, like you said, cook or culinary is one arm, creating another arm or creating another leg or something else. How in the world do you do that?
Well, my practice is really about being open and listening to the moment currently. So I'm keenly aware of the next steps that I see available around me. And then I'm also slowing down to listen to how I'm responding to those opportunities and where I'm at with it. So learning about myself is always the beginning of my day. I am a practiced meditator, And that tells me so much about where my honesty with myself lies. I have to be brave with myself. I've got a very tricky way of dancing around, hey, if that stands in my way, am I just going to ignore it, or am I going to just like face it? And those are the things that we have to practice, is looking at our own honesty and listening to what is truly the base of our motivation. And when we're centered with that, the outcome is less judged, and we can see the benefits, even though they are not necessarily the ones we expected. So when we're centered with ourselves and are listening truly to our passion without the noise of the outside world, when we really go back to that instinctual living of like, what does make me feel good about myself, and where do I feel like my talents are growing, versus I need to do that. We always have a paycheck and things like that. But honestly, what's preventing you from, what are the blocks that stand in our way of achieving those things and also earning money? Because we all know the world has plenty. So it's not that it's not available. What is it about ourselves that we're not aligning if we're not achieving it? So how do we get to that alignment so that what we are doing speaks the right things to ourselves? Because when we're the most happy, we attract love, we attract the best things, all good energy comes to us. It's like when you go out into the outside world and everybody seems like an enemy and you're the only common denominator. Time to stop and look at yourself. Well, I use the same approach with everything. Like, let's make sure that everything's flowing in the right direction. And if it's not, take the time right there to pause and say, why not? What am I forcing that's not right? It's that silent listening, yet still moving forward, that helps us successfully tier our own development. Now, it's got to be unique to ourselves, and that's where the genuine growth comes in.
Katie, that sounds so simple and so easy. Why in the world are not more people doing that?
Well, I can probably own up to my own path and tell you that, without going into detail, like I said, I have probably faced or been touched by somebody who's faced very closely every single human obstacle possible. So when you think, oh, this girl must have had it easy, well, open that sociology textbook and I've probably had every problem. So what I've learned is that my joy is within. The world's going to be messy either way, and that never changes. So what I've had to learn is that my true power and my true control is really only within. I can't control others. I can't control my environment, and I can't control those outside elements, but I can control how I respond to them. And how I respond to them is really based on how I respond to myself. And if I'm not being loving toward myself, then I need to stop and make sure I can get there. And trust me when I tell you that this concept was so foreign to me the first time I heard it. And I got to go back about 15 years, was the last time I really heard somebody say in a room, I love myself. And I thought to myself, whoa, that'll never be me. And yet I did the next right thing. And every time I felt deep fear that wasn't like actually wrong for me, like things that I was like afraid to face in myself, I looked at those things and slowly took steps towards them in spite of that fear. And that is where I find my strength in myself, is doing it anyway. We all have fear. We all have difficulties. We all have obstacles. And those can start daily, by the moment. Sometimes it takes me a long time to recenter myself and to find that inner strength and that vulnerability. But once I do, Then I can lock onto that, and then I can proceed to move forward.
So it is a conscious, or is it a conscious or subconscious awareness that I have a choice? I'm in control. And people that are fear driven and people that are looking at this is not going to work, and here are all of the reasons why it's not going to work. Well, they already have evidence of why it's not going to work, and they've literally created their own reality. You have decided on the flip side, because if it works that way, it also works the other way, that we're looking for evidence of all the things why it should work.
What it really comes down to right now is that we have to recognize what our mind is saying to us and what our instincts and our inner voice is actually saying to us, because sometimes they can be very, very far apart. Our mind has a tendency to disguise the, take things in the outside world and put blockades in our way, or self-sabotage and other tendencies we have, excuses, all these things, these reasons, these outside things that we're seeking. Yet when we kind of separate ourselves and recognize that that's just our mind, and we kind of slow down and listen to what we really want without those exterior things, our voice can sometimes be quite different within. And it's from that space that you begin to find real progress with yourself. At least you can begin to identify your own truth. And if it's fear and it's these things, well, then you can start breaking that down and say, okay, what does that look like for me? It allows you a different playing field that doesn't, when we try to control the outside world with our minds, we get very caught up in unmanageable thinking. We can spin, we can find excuses, we chase our own tails, we create our own problems.
Well, clearly, we can't control the outside world.
Once we accept that we can't control the outside world, then we own our own responsibility.
Own our own responsibility. Well, honestly, I did not think that this conversation with a celebrity chef would go in that direction at all. And I love it. And I'm here for all of it. And I want to go back to that concept of wild, because in your core, you are not identifying as that one celebrity chef or that one artist. You're not putting yourself in that box. Because here's the bottom to this. I have so many clients and so many listeners that are going, I need to do all of these things in my business in order to get to that outcome that they define for themselves. But in order to get there, they need to stop spinning the wheel down here and actually take some steps to get where they desire to go. And then their self-talk, their limiting beliefs are, if I stop spinning the wheel here, money's not going to flow in for me to grow, scale, and get to that well-formed outcome. So you have within you a formula, a pattern, and you already touched on it. And I'd like for you to touch a little bit more on it, how to go from here to there.
Well, it starts with a commitment to yourself. And that's what I'm going to just start with. When you look within, when you're quiet by yourself, when you take away all of those excuses and you strip yourself truly down, what is your relationship to yourself? Because it all comes down to our relationships to things, to ourselves, to the outside world. So what we really need to do is make a commitment to wanting to better ourselves. Once we make that commitment, now all these arms, the art, the food, I dance, I'm physically active, all these ways of expressing myself speak and allow anybody who would be working with me to be to utilize these particular tools to make themselves vulnerable in a different way. So sometimes, like, just to make it more concrete, if I was to take somebody and they wanted to work with me, I wouldn't just go in. I'm not a therapist, so I'm not pretending to work out your problems. What I'm trying to do is change your relationship with yourself. So it really has nothing to do with me, except that I would be a guide. So I take you into the kitchen oftentimes because people feel relaxed. And I start cooking because people think they can't cook when they're around me until I have them actually put a knife in their hand and realize all I got to do is chop a carrot. Like, it's just, or they can just watch me. Where does that take them? Where does the conversation flow? What are they experiencing when they allow themselves to no longer connect there and yet be here with me? They start hearing different things. And it's the art or the food or the dance or whatever it may be, or sometimes just simple meditation or silent speaking. Sometimes it's connection through human contact that people need. It depends on the individual. They know where they're at, and it can be a combination. We can get ourselves so lost and so disconnected from that inner soul self that we don't even know where to begin to take that next step. And what I ask is that don't see it as a jump from here to there. What it is it's a journey. And when you experience a journey, you think of it as a vacation or a trip. Well, then every aspect of it becomes fun. So you stop and you realize that you're discovering your vacation is your wonderment within of who you really are. It's like, it's discovering this whole fantasy within yourself and getting to know your own beauty. Success will follow. Once you understand what makes you tick and you have full love, the rest flows. You can ask for help when you need it. You can rely on people to do things. You can instruct people more easily. You hear your own voice. The minutia stops and you center yourself. But it's a relationship and a commitment to self.
That's what it boils down to. I have never heard someone use food and cooking with coaching and breaking through barriers. Is cooking a form of trance for you?
Completely. I have so many forms, but cooking sometimes, like, I just have to kick everybody out of the room. First of all, I like to challenge myself. I'm a little bit nuts because I've gone so far. So my kitchen sometimes consists of nothing working except like a hot plate, or I like to cook like in extreme environments, like on a boat dock where there's nothing available except, a 250-degree grill and, a small knife, a small cutting board, and an 1.5 inch counter. And that's when I find the most competition. And my ingredients are completely limited to what somebody else just handed me. And yet I have an audience that expects the best from me. So where I go is like, let me at it.
Challenge accepted. Challenge accepted.
Yes. So that's where I'm at in my career. Is like, I really don't care what anybody thinks. It's about me and my own personal best. So I use that. I lighten up everything because it becomes more humorous and I get less connected to the outside result and more about how did I do and where am I at. So yes, a trance and opportunity for challenge is always part of my game.
And that's part of a growth mindset. Accept the challenge. Don't fight the challenge. Embrace it. Make it fun and do something outrageously, courageously funky with it.
Yes. Yes. And stop caring about what other people think. That's the most important. Think about only what you think about your own personal best. And that's really what it comes down to. But getting to know that's the challenge sometimes.
We are our own best competitors.
For sure.
For sure. Katie, this has been such an incredible conversation. I could go on and on and on. And I know people that are watching this and listening to us want to get in touch with you. How do they get in touch with you?
Well, currently, I'm going to suggest that anybody who you can always go on my website. You can look at my social media. You can watch my television show. You can do all that to research who I've been and what I've done. But if you're really at the point where you want to talk to me directly, probably just email me directly so that we can kind of start that dialogue. And it's really a personal one-on-one. So, once you're ready or you feel like the door is opening or something's speaking to you, you probably want to go directly to me. And my email is best. And it will be me that responds. I do have other people that filter it, but I definitely am the one that is the voice responding. I am the person who works with you and gets to know you. And I tailor everything very individually at this stage for each person where they're at.
Yeah. So get with Katie, Katie at ktofoodcarnival.com. So Katie at ktofoodcarnival.com. Katie, thank you for being here. Thank you for this absolutely beautiful conversation. I wish you all the best, and get with Katie. Thanks, Katie.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Bye. Thank you for tuning in, and you will notice opportunities to apply success patterns daily while eagerly anticipating next week's content-rich success patterns.